Good morning, guys. Okay, I've got to show you this grid. It's called an aspectarian, and this is the grid of the 2017 eclipse versus the April 8th eclipse that's coming up. Okay, and I have to tell you this little joke. I play Minesweeper a lot. I actually love Minesweeper. Like, you click and try not to hit the bombs. Anyway, my husband walked in while I was studying this, and he's like, "Whoa, that's the craziest game of Minesweeper I've ever seen." He thought it was really Minesweeper, but it's not. It's astrology. Okay. Um, okay, so we have some interesting things going on here that I wanted to talk about for a second. And I think what I want to do is swap number 2 to number 3 for now, make it a two chart situation. Okay. But so these compare these two charts, and I'll show you the regular chart real fast. The inside here is the 2017 eclipse, and then the outside is the one that's coming right up. And I wanted to just take a look at them and see if anything lines up. And you'll notice that basically not a whole lot is lining up here. But we get a little bit of a different story when we look at the grid. This grid is going to tell us the angles at which all of these different planets interact with the planets on the other chart. So I just was showing you this example right here. This is Mars in 2017 trining the sun and the moon for April 8th. So what does that mean? It means that there's a natural flow between what we're resetting right now and the any kind of Martial type of energy that we were experiencing in 2017. But this is one thing that I thought was notable, that this 2017 eclipse was trining the midheaven of this upcoming eclipse, which does tell me, like, we already knew they were linked because they're 7 years apart and like what the heck, but to me it's like, oh yes, this thing came first and it was flowing right into the overall destiny of of the nation as portrayed during the April 8th, 2024 eclipse. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that the sun and moon placement for the one happening in 2 weeks is trining the north node from way back then. So what we have is, once again, this signal that the destiny involved in this eclipse is flowing right to the destiny of the last eclipse. I hope that makes any sense. Anyway, I look at this and I'm like, oh ho ho, look, it's in the stars. These are totally linked, and this is some interesting stuff. So, what has happened in the past 7 years? I mean, we've had a whole lot going on, and um, I don't know, between 2017, August of April, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, between August of 2017, halfway through to this next eclipse was what? We had COVID. We had the world shut down. What an interesting midpoint between these two eclipses. And I don't know about you, in the moment, I really was like, I don't know. I didn't think we would really come back from this. I thought that we were due for like a medical fascist takeover, and like, I don't know. I just thought, oh, the end is now. But it basically wasn't, as you know. I mean, look, the world's a different place, but my kids are still taking gymnastics. I mean, people still have jobs. We still are going out to eat occasionally. Like, people are still living their normal lives, and that's what I really mean. A lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have not changed. And that whole experience is just one more thing that has taught me that it's just really important that we don't get carried away with all of this stuff. I think it's important to keep our eyes on the signs of the times and everything, but a lot can happen and a lot cannot happen. There have just been so many times that people have said, "Oh, the end is nigh," but it wasn't. I mean, God, I was 12 at Y2K. I've talked about this before. We had Y2K, we had 9/11. I'm from like the DC area. It was a big deal for us. Um, I mean, God, 2012 and the Aztec calendar and everything like that. But the world has kept going, and I think that we're going to see that the world keeps going. And are we prepared to keep going? Are we prepared for the long haul? Because I think we're in it for the long haul. Now, some years ago, we had the Pluto return. Can you believe I'm saying that? For those who've like followed along, it's been a while since the Pluto return. And I have a lot of videos about that. And if you haven't watched them, I'm going to recommend it because it is still significant. And at the time, what I said was that Pluto returns tend to take about 12 years to unfold, based on a bunch of historical Pluto returns that I've analyzed by myself and with other experts, and it's on this channel. But what we found was this repeating pattern that the Pluto return happens and then it takes a minute, you know? So let's talk about the Pluto return. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, and it's on a 224-year cycle. So it like takes a while, okay? And you're not going to live through your own Pluto return, right? Like no humans get to do that. But what happens when a nation experiences a Pluto return is usually like a massive transformation of that nation. And I've covered a couple different nations. Like for example, during the first Pluto return after William the Conqueror signed the Magna Carta in 1066, the next Pluto return, I think we had this like massive famine and like tons of deaths, like all of Europe and all of England. I mean, they had this huge disaster with food scarcity. And it also, I mean, like in Roman times, the Punic Wars aligned with the Pluto return of Rome. And we just have all these different examples from all sorts of different historical areas of how the Pluto return has showed up. And usually it involves war, but not always. In one notable instance, it coincided in the UK with the Industrial Revolution, which I think is also a form of death and rebirth when we're ending one way of cultural living and transforming into a new way. And but we're here. We're here for America's very first Pluto return since the signing of the Declaration in 1776, the Declaration of Independence. So we had a Pluto return in 2021, and we actually had like a couple of Pluto returns because Pluto went retrograde and kind of whacked the same point of 27 degrees Capricorn several times. But now it's not going to do that again for another 200 and some years. So did I say 224 years? I think it's 244 years is the true Pluto cycle. From our perspective on the Earth, that is how long it takes for Pluto to appear as if it has gone around and gone back to the exact same place in the sky. So why am I talking about this? Because, you know, all of that was happening in 2022. And at the time I said, okay, it's 2022. I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think it's the end of the nation. But I think what we're going to see is 12 years of some serious restructuring culturally, societally, financially, economically, governmentally. We're going to see just a wide variety of things being shaken up and restructured over a period of 12 years that started in 2022, which obviously you add 12 to that, that puts us at 2034, which interestingly is 2000 years after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that's like a very interesting timeline that we're working with. I mean, that we're possibly working with. And I just want to be clear that like I'm not going to claim that I like have all the answers or something like that, but I'm just saying as a personal human that is looking at all this stuff, that's something that I'm keeping my eye on. And one thing that I don't appreciate is a lot of people saying like, "Oh, everything's falling apart right this second." It's not. I don't think that it is. I think that we're going to see things unfolding slowly, and then it's going to be pretty fast when it all starts like crumbling apart. But we're still in the slow zone, in my opinion. And maybe I will be proven wrong. And again, we just had that bridge collapse yesterday that seemed highly symbolic. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But I think we're kind of looking at some long-term shifts. Uh, you know, I talk about planetary motion a lot, and I'm always getting emails and stuff from people like, should I still go on vacation? Should I go visit my children? Should I go do this? Should I go do that? You know, the stars. And my answer is always, yeah, like go on your vacation. Like, guess what? This is a long haul game. I don't think we're in a position where we look at the night sky and it's smart to like plan your vacation around all of that. That's at least that's not my MO. I don't know. That's just not it's not how I play this game. But I think this all stuff is interesting and worth considering and worth keeping an eye on. So I just wanted to talk about that for a moment this interesting 7 years between the 2017 eclipse, the 2024 eclipse, that halfway point with COVID, and another halfway point in that same zone. It wasn't exactly halfway, obviously, but we had a really notable conjunction at that time. And let me see if I still have it saved on my software here. My software like had some weird something and it deleted almost all, well, it deleted all of my charts. Every chart I had saved, deleted. Oh, what a disaster. But dang it. Okay, I don't have it anymore saved, so I'll have to pull it up from my phone on a different time. But we had this really interesting conjunction on January the 12th of 2020, and a lot of astrologers had been looking on that for years because it was when Pluto and Saturn and the Sun and Ceres and Mercury were all exact at, I believe, 22 degrees of Capricorn, which is I mean, it was even like 22. I think that is true, but I'm like kind of remembering it. Um, but it was a crazy moment and an alignment that does not happen very often. And at the time, in the astrological community, there was a lot of talk about how this was going to trigger a big death and rebirth in what? Saturn deals with karma and the law of the harvest, especially, and all of this is in Capricorn, which governs the economy and government and established societal structures and the tradition of like nations and families. So the law of the harvest being triggered, as you sow, so shall you reap, in terms of the government, economy, uh, our traditions in general. Pluto, which triggers like a death and rebirth. Pluto prunes what isn't working. He's like this great gardener. He's got these massive muscles and these massive clippers, and he looks up at this tree that we've grown and says, that branch is not a good branch. That branch is not sustainable. And snip, snip, Pluto is the one that cuts off the branches that aren't working, which is really good and really necessary. And we need that Plutonian action in our lives so that we can trim off what isn't working and step into a new option that can work better for us. But it's never fun to have your branches pruned, right? Like if you're that tree, like snippy snips, that's not very fun. But that's Pluto for you. So Pluto was going to prune significantly in the area of government and economy and tradition and societal structures. Then we had the Sun, which is just going to illuminate all of this, and really draw attention to the core of that issue, like the core of the government, economy, societal structures. Mercury is going to deal with communication. I was sitting there thinking, propaganda, government control over speech. And I think that we definitely have seen that since that conjunction. Just a few months later, all the social media giants and the news organizations were severely censoring people, and they already had been. In 2019, I wrote my very first mega viral post at 4,000 organic shares overnight, and then Facebook took it down because it was about a controversial topic, but I was right, and I have been proven right since that time. But I had like no recourse for it, and it was just like very shocking. But that was before 2020. They were already selectively shutting people down as they were promoting narratives that were not in alignment with the established narrative. Okay. But I feel like having Mercury be exact, Pluto and Saturn and the Sun there was really big. And then we have Ceres, who deals with also harvest. Um, when I saw that, I thought supply chains. And sure enough, that all happened in January, just 3 months later. The world shut down. And what did we have? We had the law of the harvest. We had a lot of negative stuff come right back to us. We had some major death and rebirth and pruning and huge societal shifts. We had Mercury, right? We had like the censorship and the propaganda stuff happening. And then Ceres, we definitely had massive supply chain disruption. So this is all stuff that, in the moment. I remember on January 12th, I was like, oh man, is something terrible going to happen today? And I like, it was Sunday. I like went to church and then I was like, I'm not doing anything else today. Like, who knows what will happen in the world? Well, now I have a very different approach with these big significant dates. I really view it as like the moment that the clock strikes noon. But then the noon hour, the time after that is the time to really keep an eye on, and things unfold a little bit slowly compared to like the grand magnificence of the moment, right? It's not like we're Cinderella and the clock strikes 12 and the pumpkin immediately, like the carriage turns back into the pumpkin. I don't think that's how it is. I think that Cinderella has a little bit of time to run down the steps, and she has a little bit of time to ride in her carriage until, one by one, each wheel becomes a vine, and then suddenly it's a pumpkin and she's on the street in her rags instead of her beautiful dress. I think that it's a little bit of a spread out timeline rather than being like on that exact day. But that is just my opinion, and I don't know, I'm open to other perspectives. So, so anyway, all that is to say that we're heading into a really interesting time period where we're sealing up that 7 years between that 2017 eclipse and that 2024 eclipse, and it's opening this new door. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. But the number one most important thing is that we can't be afraid. Okay. We just have to connect with God every single day. The most important thing we can do is connect with our creator and say, God, what do you want me to do today? How can I best serve you today? How can I serve the other people in my life? How can I take better care of my own body and my own spirit that you blessed me with? Okay, that's the most important thing. And when we're living in the present every day, there's no room for fear. There just isn't. And if you have never really lived in the present, I'm going to invite you to experiment with it during this eclipse portal. This is a great time to just let go of a lot of stuff that you're worried about. I mean, here's the thing. You can ask God directly and say, God, what should I be worried about? What do you want me to worry about? Because the secret is, I mean, scripturally speaking, I don't think God really wants us to spend a lot of time worried at all, right? Consider the lilies of the field. They toil not, neither do they spin, but God clothes them, right? I mean, we have these. I mean, I think God teaches us this beautiful balance of being prepared, of being wise, of thinking ahead, and not, and just going up, just going forth, not knowing beforehand what we will do, just being led 100% by the Spirit in that moment. So it's up to us to figure out that balance for ourselves, and we can only really do that in partnership with our Creator. So no fear, guys. Do not stress. Go take your trip. Go go on vacation. I think that it's okay as long as you feel like it's okay when you connect with God. Okay? That is my number one thing. What is God telling you? Because God is obviously qualified to tell us if we shouldn't do a thing or if we should. And I just look back at my life and all of the trips that I wouldn't have taken if I had lived in fear, and it wasn't warranted. I'm so glad that I drove across the country to visit my parents in the throes of COVID. I'm so glad that I went and did these different things, even though all of this crazy stuff in the world is happening. Um, there's just no room for fear. As long as we're partnering with God, nothing can go wrong. And if it does go wrong, we're still in God's hands. We're going to be guided and protected through it. So that's all I have to say for today. Keep breathing and ask God today what God thinks your top priorities should be. And if ask God if it's okay to stop worrying about certain things that you're worried about. Guess what? God's probably going to say yes. And if you can choose to proactively let go of those worries and just trust that our creator is going to line everything up for you, I think that you're going to see some real miracles this week, next week, and in all the years to come. So go forth, become a person of miracles. Okay, that's your biggest job. You need to become a miracle worker everywhere that you are. And the way that you do that is by learning how to trust God in every moment and just taking everything one breath at a time. You breathe about everything and feel the feelings in your body and practice listening to inspiration from our creator and use that inspiration to inform your choices. And you step forward and you serve people and you make this world a better place and you make your own heart a better place. You can do it. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Okay, I love you so much. Bye.